Okay, thank you very much, Carlo. And now we all proceed to the prepared speeches. For the first speaker, Ms. Venneth Santos. This is for Presentation Mastery, Project 1 Icebreaker. This will be for 4 to 6 minutes. And this will be evaluated by Mr. Les Aquino. Let me call on Venneth.
That's me. Hello, thank you so much, Toastmaster of the Day, Gigi
Excuse me.
Santos. Yes.
Um, I hear something on the background, like a fan.
Yeah, there is a fan. I'm not, but that's not mine. So,
It
sorry.
disappeared. I think it's from Ma'am Lilia. Ma'am Lilia's a fan on, so she turned it off. Thank you.
She has so many
Okay.
fans. All right.
Go ahead.
So, okay, let me start. But before anything else, I want to apologize just in case my internet. Wait, sorry. I get disconnected because my internet is a little bit, what you call it's fluctuating right now. Also, the title of my speech is Too Many to Mention. I failed to report to TM Luis regarding my title. Anyway, okay. So, good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters.
No.
Remember when you were in grade school and pretty much everyone had to fill out each other's slum books? Now, for the generation that can't relate, sorry about that. A slum book is a little book with a list of questions about your personal information. Normally, it's your name, birthday, and your likes. That also includes your favorite things, your deepest, darkest secrets. And at that age of 7 to 12 years old range, the only secrets that everyone wanted to know would be who their crushes were in and out of the classroom. So, one part of the slum book that I always found interesting would be the favorite hobbies part. Only because then I'd be able to see who among my classmates would have the same hobbies as I did, so I could form alliances. I wasn't always successful though, because they would often have more illustrious hobbies as they would have more illustrious hobbies. So, for example, would be hockey, ice skating, traveling, and such. I am far from being sporty, and we didn't really have money to indulge in such hobbies. It also didn't help that majority of them would write TMT. Too many to mention. Either they were too lazy to write it down, or they realized they had the same hobbies as the rest of my classmates, which would then put them in the basic box. I was as basic as them though, and remembered writing down reading. So my father had indoctrinated in me the love for the written word at an early age. At 5 years old, my birthday gift was a trip to National Bookstore, and I had the choice of what book to buy. Honestly, though, I would have preferred a Barbie doll or a Lego at that point, but when you have a father like I do, that option is off the table. So, from fairy tales, I graduated to spending time at the library eating up Enid Blyton, Nancy Drew, the twins in Sweet Valley High, sweeping romantic novels a la Jude Deveraux or Daniel Steele. I would also every now and then read Christopher Pike and Arl Stein, up to the time I started reading Jessica Zafra and Tony Paris. So I may not have a lot of money, but the places I've been and the conversations that I had because of these books. Then it stopped. I stopped reading books. I wasn't sure what distracted me at that point. My world had gotten bigger, probably because I had entered the workforce. Or maybe it was because of the ubiquity of computers, mobile phones, or the internet. Whatever it was, I felt incredibly guilty, like I had ditched an old best friend for a new one. So I tried to rekindle the flame of book reading. I started by visiting Fully Booked. Now, that place is the bane of my wallet. I don't think there was ever a time I went there and didn't step out with a new book in hand. However, my purchases proved futile. My love for books didn't resume, and it was as if I had lost interest or forgotten the feeling. So it's not all hopeless though. So one day I stumbled upon an article and it was all I needed to jolt me into action. Part of it said, not all books are meant to be read. And if you get bored with one, put it down. You pick it up again when it's your time to read it. So I put myself into action. I started reading the books that probably won't put me to sleep. Old favorites in my bookshelf that were collecting dust. And what difference the years have made. It was seeing and reading the books from a new point of view and a wider understanding. So I wasn't done though. I bought a Kindle so I could easily access the books that I wanted to read, and I installed the app in all my devices. I tapped into my inherent competitiveness and created a Goodreads account so I could see what my allies are reading and made sure I updated it regularly. I bought a subscription to Audible so I wasn't just reading, I was also listening. I would also send passages of the books to my friends whenever it made me think of them or when I felt it would resonate with them. Lastly, I try not to put pressure on myself and put a limit on the number of pages I would read. Status quo, at least 5 pages a day, if not more. Every now and then, I would put a book down, especially if I felt it wasn't my time to read it yet. And I didn't feel guilty. I know I will pick it up eventually when it is time. After all, doesn't everything boil down to right timing? I suppose you could say that my relationship with reading or reading books is similar to an old couple falling in love and then, falling out of love and falling in love back again. You see your partner with a different set of eyes after a few years of being apart. Everything is shiny and bright. You can't keep your hands off each other, but it doesn't end there. You gotta keep the spark alive. And that's what I've been doing nowadays. So making time and trying to become more of an active reader than a passive one. Because in more ways than one, my reading has given me so much. So places I've never been to, ideas from people I've never met, multiple realities I have lived. Reading taught me to remember and also helped me forget. So all the good in my life just because of the pieces of paper bound on the left end that we call a book. Fellow Toastmasters, let me end with a quote. Books are the plane, the train, and the road. They are the destination and the journey. They are home. Toastmaster Gigi, you're on mute. Muted. You're muted. You're muted.
Hold on. I am the timer, the manager, and I'm a speaker. So sorry if I'm a bit slow today. I'm trying my best, guys. So can I request the speakers to unmute themselves? Thank you.
Okay, sorry for that. I'm also having a hard time. I'm very sorry because we are not allowed to use Zoom. So something keeps on popping up. So we're not allowed to use Zoom. We are only allowed to use Microsoft Teams. Anyway, so I'm just blocking this firewall. So, okay. So thank you very much. Now we go to the next speaker, Pat Maliksi. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hold on.
Patricia Maliksi for presentation, mastery, evaluation, and feedback. This will be for 5 to 7 minutes. Title, I Can and I Will.
Can I
Pat?
request someone to take over the timer before I proceed with my speech? My speech will run for 5 to 7 minutes. Thank you. Okay. Hope you can bear with me. Is my screen sharing? Is it sharing? No. This? Okay. I'll just set up my... Ready? Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters. I can and I will. I first heard this line from one of my favorite actresses. Her name is Gina Rodriguez. And she plays Jane from the Skull called Jane the Virgin. And I really love that show. I don't know if anyone of you have seen it. I highly encourage you to watch it. I cried, I laughed, I was taken in an emotional roller coaster, and the two lead guys, may I add, are very hot. So, watch it. Anyway, kidding aside, I remember how I cried when I watched that show. And I remember how I cried when she delivered her acceptance speech for that role when she won in the Golden Globe Awards. And from her acceptance speech, I was blown away by what she said. Today's going to be a great day. I can and I will. And then she won the award. So she said, today's a great day. I can and I did. That really struck me. I think because it shows how hard she worked. As a person of color, who had to fight twice as hard, how she really tried her hardest in good days and in bad days. She was her own motivator. And that's when I saw what intrinsic motivation is. So for those of you, intrinsic motivation is interest and enjoyment in the task itself. It comes from within. It has enjoyment, purpose, growth, curiosity, passion, self-expression, fun. And the other motivation is extrinsic motivation, where it motivates you from the outcome you will have. The promotions, the pay raises, the bonuses, the benefits, the prizes, the perks of winning, outcome that will result by doing the task. And so before I was the Patricia you now see, let me share with you my story. I struggled with generalized anxiety disorder. I was an overthinker. Early last year, I was at my lowest. I cried out of nowhere and paced around when I got so nervous because I received a text message from a client that the content wasn't alarming at all. It's just that I equated my performance with how well I serve others. With the support of my family, I decided to get therapy and get checked professionally. I knew something was not right and how I was responding to a stressful situation. I was easily triggered and my thoughts easily turned dark. I want to give a shout out to my fellow Toastmaster, Carlo Habat. I remember how he delivered her speech in Alabang about depression.
That was a decision.
And when I was struggling with this, I remember his speech and I messaged him. And he encouraged me to get checked professionally. He gave me the details of his doctor, and I'm forever grateful to Carlo for how he helped me and how he gave me all the details, supported me, assisted me in getting checked. And I remember with one of the nights during I was crying, I told the Lord, save me from this dark place, please, Lord. I don't want to feel like this forever. True enough, the Heavenly Father that He is, He saved me and felt His guiding hand from my checkup to my graduating therapy. My motivation to go to therapy came from the inside. I wanted to change. I wanted to know. I wanted to grow. In my 12-session therapy was cut to 9. And now I graduated therapy and in a much healthier mental space. Sorry. And I can't thank him enough because how my timing of my breakdown came before this COVID situation and I was mentally prepared for it. My therapist told me that you should avoid should and must statements. When we use the word should, it contributes to panic and anxiety. Should statements impacts your struggle, your panic, and find out how shoulds and oughts must contribute to panic disorder and how you can reframe the thoughts in a positive way. That's why I love that's why it was motivate the should and must statement you should avoid because it motivated lack of self-acceptance rather than encouragement. That's why I love the statement from Gina Rodriguez when she accepted the speech. I can and I will. It encourages me to try the things that are harder or stressful. I'm motivating myself from the inside. I'm also blessed that I'm passionate about what I do. Enjoy everything when it's hard. I treat everything as a learning experience. When I make mistakes, it's okay. Now I know what to do next time. I'm not perfect. My should statement still comes and arises from time to time. But when they do, or when I'm being self critical, I ask that negative thought this. When I'm being self critical, I ask the things from this thought. What is the evidence for this? What are the odds of this really happening or being true? Am I looking at the whole picture? And most often than not, when I ask those three questions, the thought of me is being critical of myself. So whenever I'm in a stressful situation, especially during this COVID time, and whenever you're faced with a stressful situation, tell yourself today, tell yourself today, today's going to be a great day. I can and I will. Thank you. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Pom. You can and you will. You are very young and determined, and I know that you will pass through any. You know, you will have a lot of trials, but I know and I'm very sure with that smile and confidence, you can achieve and you can surpass anything. Don't worry about it. God is always there. And your mom and your sisters and your family will always be your backbone. Okay? Smile always. Okay,
I
let us,
am.
yeah,
Thank you.
let us now call another speaker for the day. Sorry. Uh, oh, let me call myself. Okay, sorry, had an emergency, so I wasn't able to fix anything. Okay, so words for life. What is life? Life is a question that can't be answered in one word or in a single sentence. Life is what you do, what you love, what you hate, what you dislike. Life is a question that cannot be answered in a single sentence. Life, what you love, what you hate, and anything that you dislike. In dealing with life, there are four words that are very important to me, which is love, honesty, truth, and respect. In my life's journey, I have been in too many rocky roads for 50 years, been with relationships that failed, success and failures in my career, experiencing happiness and sadness when I see my children succeed or facing their own challenges. It is as if that I wanted to bear all the pain that they feel every time they face these challenges. When I feel low and began to continue to question myself, I always go back to the lines that I see in the Desiderata poem that's hanging in our room. It says, go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible without surrender, be in good terms with all persons. Speak truth quietly and clearly. Listen to others, even to the dull and ignorant. They do too have their own story. With these lines, one day, I had to make the toughest decision in my life at the age of 30. I had to end a long year relationship with my husband. When I got separated and annulled from my marriage, I saw the sadness in the eyes of my children that this decision brought to them. I've seen them going through all the pain and sadness, even if they're smiling in front of me. One day, I took a leave. I always work hard during my days being a single parent. I seldom take a leave, not even on my birthday. But I decided one day to take this leave because they're getting older and going through the toughest stage, which we call teenage life. Frightened that they may life may not be good, or may be going through the toughest times. Their life might go in peril or something. So I was thinking of it all the time. And then I brought them to the beach. In one starry night, I decided to sit down and talk to them about this. I decided to explain how things work and why it does not work in some marriages. After this meeting, after being honest, truthful, and showing them the respect by acknowledging how they feel and expressing how much I love them, and always telling them that we will get through this, and I will never do anything to forsake them. After this phase in my life, I saw them living and enjoying their youth now. We now live this journey together, living with these four important words in my life that can guide us, and making sure that it can weather any storm that would go my way. Thank you very much. So now back to Toastmasters of the day. So let me call again. Let me call the next speaker, Miss Ching Bognot. Hi, hold on, Sorry, sorry. Let me call Miss Pam Patacsil for Presentation Mastery Project 1 Communication Styles. This will run for 5 to 7 minutes. Title is Lost in Translation. And evaluator is Mr. Ed Ramirez.
Thank you,
Miss
Madam
Pam?
Toastmaster. Yeah, thank you. I'll just share my screen. First, there is no hamper later on. Hello, Toastmasters. Good afternoon. You're leaving? Why? Is there something we can do about it? That was my boss in my previous office 2 decades ago. Why did they leave? Well, my boss and I just don't see much eye to eye. She seems nice, but I don't really know where I stand with her. What are her plans for my career? Or does she have one for me? She's fond of beating around the bush. And so the story goes. I transferred 5 times and have different kinds of bosses. You see, change is not my forte. And I sure do hate status quo. I tell you, some of my bosses are really temperamental that I really dreaded waking up in the morning and have learned to hate Mondays. There are those that leave the decision to you and blames you if it fails and claims if it proves to be a success. All is not a test of patience though, as I met one ideal boss last year. She's well liked by everybody. Who wouldn't? She's smart, calm, and collected, and is in full control each time. No matter how rushed the talk is, this lady boss takes full responsibility and is very supportive and understanding of your mistakes. An imaginary boss? Not quite. Unfortunately, her family migrated last year to Canada, and I'm with a new boss again. Well, I like her, but not as much as the other one. What, as, what is it that makes us leave organizations? Well, we've heard of the saying that people don't quit their job, they quit their bosses. And what is the real reason? Lack of or miscommunication. This is true in all our relationships though. This is true with our friends, in Toastmasters, and with our loved ones. Divorce rates in the US cited that 57.7% of couples separate due to lack of communication. Career and country, 90.4% of marital satisfaction is correlated with compatible communication. Since I know what kind of supervisors as well as office mates I feel comfortable with, I did not in any way consider studying my communication style or how am I perceived by many. Toastmasters identified core communication style and these styles are direct, analytical, supportive, and initiative. On the right-hand side of the line are the things that's done fast. Are you impatient? Are you in a hurry? On the left-hand side are the things done at a slower pace, requiring planning and thinking. On the horizontal line, anybody above the horizontal line means you focus on the task. You want to get this job done regardless of other factors. Below that line, you focus on the people that are involved. You can sacrifice some tasks to ensure that people are taken care of or are satisfied. Based from the assessment, I am a combination of the three styles, the dominant of which is the analytic, to which I scored 5, 4 on direct, and 3 on supportive. Unfortunately, I am 0 on initiative. I have always been a task-oriented person. Yet, I have this penchant to really take time to think and plan things before plunging in. I guess the over-cautiousness of an analytical person is negated with my having a direct style, which drives me to finish the task assigned to me. But I'm also a supportive type, which goes to show why I like a relaxed atmosphere when doing tasks or when in a group doing brainstorming activities. I like to listen to all the ideas of the members of the group and try to understand everybody's viewpoint. Having a deeper understanding of my communication style made me think of my former bosses. I realized that the ones that did not fare well are those who expect results at a snap of a finger. I, on the other hand, prefer thinking things through at the time. A miscommunication of expectations. Some are not forward also in the direction. Knowing my communication style now strengthened my resolution to focus on research-oriented jobs, those that are expected to have thorough planning and thinking. I have to be aware also of the communication style of the persons I'm dealing with. I came to the realization that while we cannot control people's attitudes that we encounter at work, our neighborhood, at public places, or even at home, we can control our reaction to them. Matching our communication style to the people we deal with is an essential step to effective communication. How many of you have babies around here? Siblings at least? Well, would you imagine how mommies know what their babies are telling them without them saying anything? I remember when my youngest cries, and I'd know immediately if he wants milk, a cuddle, or simply wants to sleep. How do I know that? By studying his non-verbal cues and listening from the heart. Knowing how to aptly use this communication style will jumpstart us in having a meaningful dialogue with our families, our kids, our coworkers, and even strangers that we meet. Issue resolution will be faster, thus avoiding escalation of problems. Fellow Toastmasters, let us use this knowledge to spread awareness first within our little community and then outward. With that, I leave this quote from Catherine Pulsifer. Communication sometimes is not what you first hear. Listen not just to the words,
Good
but listen for the reason.
bridge between.
Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. I think the bridge, there's a saying that the good communication is a bridge between clarity and between clarity and confusion. So this is we heard something good from your speech this afternoon, and I think everyone also experienced the same way, one way or another. Okay, let me go back to the next speaker. It will be Miss Ching Bognot, the anatomy of storytelling. This will be present for presentation mastery. Prepare to speak professionally. This will run from 18 to 22 minutes. Evaluator is Mr. Les Aquino, DTM Les Aquino. Miss Ching?
Miss Toastmaster of the day, Miss Timer, I would need a minute to share my screen. May I?
Yes, you may.
Can all of you see my screen?
Yes po.
Am I clear?
Yes po. It's clear.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to this. That is not a good way to tell a story. Let me tell you how. Do you want to know how, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes, please.
Let me share with you how. Imagine that the human body is a concoction of stories bursting with colors, heart, mind, soul coming alive through storytelling. Did you imagine something like this? There isn't a part of our lives which stories do not touch. Our whole life is a thread of stories woven on the fabric of the universe. Miss Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon, let us inspire the world with storytelling by dissecting these three main points. Number one, the heart of storytelling. Number two, the mind of storytelling. And number three, the soul of storytelling. Let us begin with main point number one, the heart of storytelling. Just as the heart pumps lifeblood in the human body, similarly, our personal stories of courage, determination, triumph that we share and talk and hear about every day elicit a strong feeling of connection. Therefore, it can be said that the best way to connect with people is through telling of one's story, authentic and real. Words are how we think, stories are how we link. As an example, allow me to share my personal story. This is story number one. The main characters are the young girl and the Mexican. Setting, the Philippines between the years 2005 to 2007. I will be your storyteller. The story goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a young girl at 22 who started working in a Swiss multinational company. She works as the executive assistant to the president and managing director. Once upon a time, she served the highest among the ranks. Every 3 years, they came and went to and from the Philippines. Through them, the young girl was introduced to the fascination of foreign cultures, from the Latin American Panama and Mexico to the Federal Republic of Deutschland to the European Kingdom of Belgium to the historic Isle of Greece, the smallest continent, Australia, and currently the land of the rising sun, Japan. Once upon a time, the highest of the ranks were all she tried to please. She was mobile 24/7, not minding if day has broken or night has fallen. Most of them loved and adored her, except for one, the Mexican. With his brows geometrically meeting at the center, his right fist tightly clenched against his desk, and with an arrogant tone of voice, the Mexican often exclaimed, "I am the president. Some things have to change around here." Once upon a time, it dawned on the young girl that she needed to prove her worth to the Mexican to keep her job. In 2006, the young girl won Secretary of the Year. For the first time, the young girl was afforded with deafening applause, the grandest of prizes, and earned the Mexican's favor. For the first time, the young girl broke through the glass ceiling, and for the first time, the young girl from PLM stood tall. But was it all worth it? She contemplated that once upon a time, the Mexican liked her only for her achievement. Truly, the passage of time allowed the young girl to see things in a different perspective and promising herself, never again will I please anyone but God. Once upon a time, on her 28th year with Novartis, the young girl's wonderful stories continue. While life sometimes has drama, let's remember the funny moments it offers. This leads us to my second story, entitled Steve Who. Once upon a time, there was a young girl and a German with a wonderful working relationship. The German was a happy boss. He whistled while he worked. Without googling it, can any one of you remember what happened on this day? Okay, let me tell you. The German came in her office. His usual beaming smile was missing. Slowly, he sat on a chair, and facing her, the German uttered in a low and sad voice, "So, Ching, Steve Jobs died." The young girl was dumbfounded. In her mind's eye, the question played, "Steve who?" It took her a minute, and with a compassionate tone, she uttered, "I'm sorry to hear that, sir." That was a perfect response, and the story would have just ended there. But her confusion got the better of her, and with her innocent eyes, the young girl looked at the German, and she simply had to ask, "Sir, is he one of the top executives of our company in Switzerland?" The German's face turned red, his jaw dropped, his blue eyes grew big, a big question mark was on his face. The German slowly stood up and left her office. Immediately, the young girl Googled Steve Who, and with a naughty grin on her face, the young girl was relieved that she didn't ask the German any further if they should send flowers to Steve Jobs. That night, while the techno world mourned the loss of an icon, the young girl had a hearty laugh for her innocent stupidity and thanks to Steve Who. Science says that laughing at oneself indicates resilience. Seeing the humor in negative events is connected to well-being and psychological health. The more you laugh, the more you're thankful, the better you remember your story. Ladies and gentlemen, did you like my stories? Did you feel a connection to my stories? to my stupidity, to my sadness? Are not your hearts burning and probably your minds wandering when you were listening to my stories? If you felt any of these, then I was able to touch your emotions using the heart of storytelling. While the heart is one of the most important elements in storytelling, you will agree with me that there are some fundamentals equally important which can help us develop an effective storytelling. This leads us to main point number 2, the mind of storytelling. While storytelling has the elements of setting, characters, the plot, in the interest of time, we will focus our discussion on the following subtopics under the mind of storytelling. Number 1, the plot, and number 2, the role of the storyteller. Why discuss about the plot? Simply put, the plot is a climax, a rising action leading to a resolution. The plot leaves a question in the minds of the listeners. This is best demonstrated in E.M. Forster's example. The king died and then the queen died is a story. The king died and then the queen died of grief is a plot. And this is exemplified in my third story entitled Forget Me Not. Once upon a time, there was a young girl and her mom. Forget that I'm your mom. She could hear the frustration from her mom's voice. Her mom wanted the young girl to follow in her footsteps, get into government service. While the young girl had a different plan, work in the private sector. Their ideals conflicted. Stressful as it was and difficult not to obey her mom, the young girl decided to follow her heart. Years passed and neither brought the topic up, but the young girl felt that mom was happy for her and thankful that the young girl got into this Swiss multinational company. The young girl's mom passed on 7 years ago in a cold December morning. And in the young girl's heart, she could hear her mom say, I am proud of you. Forget me not. And I never will. Why did their ideas conflict? What happened when she followed her heart? Are probably some of the questions we may cross your mind. Did we get to the point on the plot? Moving on, let us suppose we have established a beautiful storyline emphasizing the plot. This then begs the question, what is the role of the storyteller? The purpose of the storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think upon. Storyteller should be aimed at any of the following: moving people to action, communicating our culture, transmitting our values, sharing knowledge, and leading people into the future. For example, what are our life stories that we want to change, to focus more on, and to focus on less? What are the stories of our BF community that we need to change, to focus more on, and to focus on less? No matter the kind of story, the role of the storyteller becomes very critical in establishing the connection between the story and the listeners. So far in our discussion, we have pumped the heart, main point number 1, and opened up the mind, main point number 2. Moving on to our third and last main point, we free up the soul of storytelling. This means how I, as a storyteller, see storytelling from my perspective. Number 1, it takes an immeasurable amount of risk and unquestioned vulnerability to effectively connect with people through storytelling. Number two, a good story is only as effective as a storyteller. With the use of vivid descriptions, the audience will be taken to where and when the story took place. It's as if the audience was there when the story happened. And number three, there is no perfect story. However, there is no perfect way to tell a story, but there is a perfect story. Your story. Listen to my last story. Once upon a time, there was a young girl at 16 who fell in love for the first time. It all began at the pamantasan ng lungsod ng Maynila. He and she were from different worlds. Her mother was braided, dressed in her white and blue uniform, and she never got around without a pair of stockings on and a hanky on her hand, almost always covered her mouth. She was very bashful to speak. A shy smile radiated from her face. She's comfortable in silence. She graduated high school exposed to girls, and the opulence of rules and the strict discipline of the Belgian priests inspired her demeanor. He, on the other hand, was fair-skinned, thin-framed, hair neatly gelled on one side, just like a character in an anime. He graduated from the Manila Science High School, excelled in the arts, exuded confidence, street smart, and saw his way through college as a working student. Once upon a time, he and she became friends. They shared a similar liking for New Wave, The Cure, and Culture Club. Once upon a time, she caught his gaze. His gaze turned to love. He pursued her, and later that year, a love story began. Once upon a time, two souls were in love. He introduced her to the enchantment of a first holding of hands, a first embrace, a first kiss, a first quarrel, a first date when they bravely crossed Rizal Park under the heat of the sun for a love bus going to Greenbelt, a first movie at Quad, a subtitled Chinese karate film, where they sat on orchestra seats surrounded by children. Oh, where was Dating 101 then? And did I tell you? She brought her camera. Seated at the bench of Greenbelt Park while he was looking at the signature of Dr. Jose Rizal, she slowly pulled her camera out for a souvenir photo of her first date. Seeing the embarrassment on his face and hearing him say, "Keep that or I'll leave you," she had no choice but to forgo the photo op. She was born under the sign of Libra, and once upon a time, she was her escort, her first and last dance during her debut. She was living a fairy tale. Cinderella and her Prince Charming dancing together to happily ever after. Once upon a time, her quiet persona and his outgoing charm complemented. He loved her and she loved him more, but it was not enough. He started to change her. She tried, but it was impossible to be someone you're not. Once upon a time, there was a love story which ended abruptly. It was in December when he broke up with her after almost 2 years of fairy tale. Her world, which revolved around him and him alone, crashed. Her once unyielding spirit finally gave in, and without a closure, she accepted that the fairy tale was over one Christmas morning. That was he, and that was she during the closure on March 16, 2013, after Eat Bulaga at Broadway Centrum. Many years passed, while by virtue of her youth and naivete fell prey to the sweet words of another many years back. There is a wonderful love story after all. Meet my Prince Charming and meet my family. The true love of my life. Have already a picture of how using our own stories and employing the fundamentals can help a world hungry for inspiration and longing for connection experience authentic storytelling. This is best described in these words by corporate storyteller Stephen Denning. Storytelling does not replace analytical thinking. It supplements it by enabling us to imagine new perspectives and new worlds. Abstract analysis is easier to understand when seen through the lens of a well-chosen story. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen, the anatomy of storytelling. We have pumped the heart, opened up the mind, and freed up the soul. In summary, I believe that when we tell our stories, a busy world comes to a halt, lends its ears, and a hungry audience craves for more. So, let out the storyteller in you. Be vulnerable, use your voice, and inspire the world through storytelling. Miss Toastmaster.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Ching Bognot, for sharing with us the anatomy of storytelling and for the wonderful 4 stories you shared with us that makes us all smile and touch us. Okay, we will now have a 10-minute break. Miss Timer,
Yes, it's
what is the
3:34.
exact time now and what time are we going back?
We're going to be here at 3:44.
Okay,
So you can do
thank
your
you.
business.
See you after 10 minutes.